Okay, so this is Unit 1C. Most of you may have gotten here, you may not have. If not, I did let you take it home with you to start working on it, and we'll start working on it a little bit next week. But just to have an example problem for you to reference this weekend, we're going to do number 10 on that Unit 2C packet. To start off with, we have negative 1/5 y minus 1/10 x is equal to negative 1. And so for us to graph stuff, it really helps to have it in what we call slope intercept form. And the slope intercept form is something you're used to seeing. Y is equal to mx plus b. So a lot of you know this, you just don't know the name of it. Memorize the name of it. Because when I refer to it in class, I'm not always going to say, or I'm not always going to write y equals mx plus b. It'll just be slope intercept form. So get used to that terminology, make sure you use it, make sure you talk about it, and make sure you're aware of it, and you know that it means this, so that you're not lost in class. So what we want to do is manipulate this equation right here to look like this. So let's talk about some of the things that we see that we're going to have to do. First, we're going to get y by itself, right? We're going to try to get some kind of singular number in front of our x, which is called the coefficient, and then some number all by its lonesome plus whatever. That'll be our y-intercept. Okay, so let's start off. We'll start with negative 1. And let me zoom in just a little bit for you guys. Equals negative 1/5 y minus 1/10 x. So I want to get y by itself. The first thing I should do, and this is just in general as we talked about, or some of you kind of struggled with, is I want everything that doesn't have a y to be over here on the left-hand side. So this x part right here, this has stuff attached to it that I just don't need or want over here. So I'm going to do the opposite and add 1/10 x to both sides. So all I did was, it was subtracted, it was negative, so I did the opposite and made it a positive, or added it. So that way it cancels out. And over here on the left, where some people made a mistake this week, is they would try to add negative 1 to 1/10. You can't do that. They're not like terms. Remember we said that like terms are things that have the same variable or no variable. Since this does not have a variable and this has an x as a variable, they are not like terms, so we can't add them. So we're just going to write them down, just kind of do bookkeeping and keep track of them so we don't lose them, but we cannot add them together. So now we have our equation, negative 1 plus 1/10 x equals negative 1/5 y. One of the things that we talked about during a kind of brief discussion in class was how we can rewrite this as y over 5, as a negative y over 5. And we can do that because negative 1/5 y is the same as saying negative 1/5 times y over 1. And so when we multiply, we end up with y over 5. Okay, so the other piece, let's zoom out just a little bit. And because we can now write it as negative 1 plus 1/10 x is equal to negative y over 5, we know that what we're going to do is to multiply both sides, and I'll write this on the next step. We'll multiply both sides by this negative 5. So we'll have negative 5 times this whole quantity, and what that will allow us to do is we will cancel out our 5s, and we'll multiply and distribute to both places. So now we have positive 5, because negative 5 and negative 1 is positive 5, and then negative 5 over 10 x, which is going to equal to a positive y. We're going to simplify this 5 over 10. So now let's look what we have. We have, and it looks kind of funky, but we'll rewrite it. Y by itself, like we want it, back up here. We have a 1 coefficient in front of our x, like we wanted. And we have something just sitting there with no variable. That's our intercept, and we wanted that as well. So y, and I'll write it over here underneath our graph, y is going to equal negative 1/2 x plus 5. So my y-intercept is going to be positive 5. A lot of you graphed your y-intercept on the x-axis. Remember, the x-axis is horizontal, the y-axis is vertical. So my y-intercept is at 5, and I have a negative slope. So remember I said I can go down and to the right, or I can go up and to the left. I prefer up and to the left. It's just a personal decision. So I'm going to go up 1 and to the left 2. And this gives me my second point. And I'm just going to draw my line like so. So that's what I have. I have my 2 points, I have my slope, and I have my line all given from my slope, all given from my equation. So just to kind of recap, what I need to do is when I have to graph an equation, and I'm going to abbreviate equation. So the first thing I'm going to ask myself, is it in slope intercept form? So if it is, then I'm going to find the y-intercept, and I'm going to find the slope. And then I'm going to graph. Okay? If it's not, then what I have to do is a little bit more involved. I have to what we call solve for y. Then I can find my y-intercept, find my slope, and then graph it. Okay? So if you need to, pause the tape, write the graph down, make sure you have it, make sure you have the steps. Feel free to practice it a little bit. If you need additional practice problems, or you feel you need additional practice problems, just come and see me, and I'll provide you with some more.